Rocket League is 8 years old this year, and in that time the game has gone through many changes. Practically every aspect of the game has evolved in some way, from the UI to even the gameplay itself. But there's one constant throughout the game's history which I find particularly interesting. Psyonix really don't like sharing the numbers. If you never searched elsewhere for this information, there's no way you would know about most of the things going on underneath the surface. How the game handles MMR, how certain mechanics work, even down to how many people are actually playing the game. One of the more interesting omissions are the car's hitboxes. The hitbox determines most things mechanically about how a car will perform, and is one of the only major things the game lets you change to impact gameplay balance. The game doesn't tell you anything about them, so why doesn't it? And is it really even that big of a deal? Before we jump in, let me give you a quick crash course on hitboxes. Hitboxes are invisible bits of geometry that check for collisions and come in varying sizes and complexities, depending on the game and what they're used for. In Rocket League's case, they represent the collision dimensions of the car you use. They tend to be large cuboids, slightly larger than the cars themselves, which is why the car never quite makes direct contact with the ball. You're actually driving an invisible cuboid masquerading as a car, and the actual model is just along for the ride. The reason that they represent the car as a cuboid rather than the actual model is for performance sake, and to keep things simple and consistent. Imagine trying to aim a shot with a car like this if it was actually represented as it appears. As of this video's release, the cars are all organised into one of 6 hitbox groups: the Octane, Dominus, Plank, Hybrid, Breakout, and the Merc. Cars within the same hitbox category are mechanically identical in every way, but the different categories vary in more than just the shape of the hitbox. They also have their own handling, ride height, and inclinations, which help give each of the categories their own unique feel. So how do you know which car has which hitbox? Well, there's currently no way to do that in-game, unless you're really in tune with how each hitbox feels. There is zero indication of what hitbox a car uses, let alone any indication that the car works this way at all. You have to go outside the game onto third-party websites or scan news updates for new car releases. So why doesn't Psyonix, the game's developer, display this information? Being an esport, you would expect it to be much more open with how things work mechanically, much like other games that give players a plethora of information to learn from. There are some theories on why, but my favourite that I've seen is that they hide it intentionally for marketing reasons. As competitive as the game is, it still has a casual player base numbering in the millions, the type of people who, dare I say, just play the game for fun. If the hitbox data was available, it would be pretty obvious that the new cars are, for all mechanical purposes, reskins that work exactly the same as one another. They would likely behave like the people who do know about the hitboxes and be less likely to spend money for hitboxes that they know they don't like. There's also the idea that it wouldn't really be worth the effort of implementing, simply because the people who want to know these things can easily find these things out in other ways already. This information is widely available outside of the game, from incredibly detailed wikis to really cool YouTubers. I equate it to playing a game like Terraria. I'm going to say Terraria. You can just mess around on Terraria at your own leisure. And on first impression, it seems like a fairly simple 2D game, but it actually has a whole bunch of hidden depth just below the surface. If everything was showcased up front, it could be seen as very intimidating, but if you let players explore the depth of the game mechanics at their own pace, you give them the freedom to choose how deep they want to go with it, instead of making that decision for them. The final possibility is that they simply didn't care to add the information in-game. The hitboxes themselves were standardized in 2017, almost exactly 6 years ago as of this video. Before that point, every car had its own unique hitbox, so there wasn't really any need to point that information out. Rocket League's esports run had barely started by that point, and the game was generally in its infancy, so it was more party game than tier 1 esport. So does this stuff matter? For your average player, probably not that much. But I think this stuff does matter when it comes to the conversation around the future of the game as an esport. There are increasing concerns that having only 6 real choices has gradually turned the game stale. It would be like if a shooter only had 6 guns to choose from. There are numerous calls to return to a time before categories and let each car have its own strengths and weaknesses, or to simply give us more than 6 choices to choose from. I think not having this hitbox information be more prevalent in the community detracts from the conversation around it and its importance to the game as a whole. But what do you guys think? Be sure to leave a comment and like the video if you enjoyed it. If you'd like to have some more in-depth conversations around Rocket League, be sure to join my community Discord. All the links for that will be in the description.